Hello, it's Matt McLachlan. Before we get to this week's podcast, I wanted to extend a very special invitation to you. In August 2025, my signature tour is heading back to the Western Front, and I'd love you to come with me. We're going to explore the battlefields of France and Belgium and tell the entire story of the Australians during the First World War. It's going to be an amazing trip. We're going to visit the Somme, we're going to visit the Ypres Salient, French Flanders, famous battlefields such as Passchendaele, Pozières, Villers-Bretonneux, Boulecourt, Fromelles, and many more. Now, this is the only tour I'm going to personally escort to the Western Front in 2025. So if you'd like to come with me, please don't wait. The tour sells out very, very quickly. It departs Paris on the 30th of August, 2025, and you can find full information at our website, which is battlefields.com.au.
Weight loss. It needs to be fast and sustainable. Noom GLP-1 starts at just $149 and ships to your door in 7 days. Take it from Lauren, who lost 22 pounds on Noom.
If I come off of the GLP-1, it's not going to automatically make my weight yo-yo back.
$149 GLP-1s? Now that's Noom smart. Get started at Noom.com. Real Noom user compensated to provide their story. Individual results may vary. Not all customers will medically qualify for prescription medications. Compounded medications are not reviewed by the FDA for safety, efficacy, or quality.
Introducing Instagram teen accounts, a new way to keep your teen safer as they grow, like making sure they always have their seatbelt on.
All right, buckle up. Good job.
New Instagram teen accounts, automatic protections for who can contact your teen and the content they can see.
A Living History production.
I'm Peter Hart.
And I'm Gary Bain.
And together we're Pete and Gary's Military History
Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the podcast. I'm Peter Hart and with me is Gary Bain. And we've got sad news for our listeners, haven't we, Gary?
Yeah, this is the first podcast that we've done since Fred passed away, unfortunately.
Yes, so we'll miss lots of things about Fred, his cheery character, his effervescent personality.
Yes, so you've stepped in and you're doing the farts today.
Yes, I'm doing the farting today.
He'll be missed.
He'll be missed. He was a lovely dog. Right, well, but what is the topic of our... it's almost a Fred-like personality we're doing today, aren't we? Gruff, bad-tempered, aggressive... Who is it?
That's pretty much everybody we do.
Yeah, that's right.
Today, it's Gebhard von Blücher.
Gebhard von Blücher. Why are we doing Blücher?
Well, when we did the Waterloo podcast some time ago now, we were quite taken with him and the performance of the Prussians. So we thought that he might be an interesting character. And so we decided to delve in a little bit deeper. Having decided to do that, we thought we'd just scratch the surface today.
Scratch the surface. So we're doing his early career up to about 1813, and we'll do the rest when we get round to it.
Well, in 1813, he was about 127, wasn't he? Yeah, because when was he born?
He was born on the 16th of December, 1742, in the Baltic port of Rostock, which was where?
It was in the Duchy of Mecklenburg-Schwerin.
That's one of the North German Confederation states, isn't it? Or German Confederation.
Yeah, I mean, we had to look it up. It's sort of below Sweden on the south side of the Baltic. It's definitely what we'd call Germany now.
Yeah.
And, yeah, you're quite right. It was a sovereign member state of the German Federation, which, as you well know...
no, I didn't.
No.
Anyway, who was his daddy?
Well, his father was Christian von Blücher, and he was a retired army captain of noble origins. Now,
you're of noble origins, aren't you? The Bain family go back centuries.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's noble, but they owned land in northern Germany, so they were minor landed gentry, I think.
Oh, like David Barron, our favourite.
And they'd done that since at least the 13th century.
His mum, Dorothea von Zülow. Also minor landed gentry of Mecklenburg. Blücher had 5 brothers. How did they do? What did they do in life, Gary?
Well, surprisingly, they all pursued military careers, although not to any great success, as most of them seem to have been killed or wounded fighting for various forces against a miscellany of enemies.
Right. So what was Blücher like as he was growing up? Studious, hard-working, intelligent?
Well, none of those things. He was certainly no student. He evaded studies to concentrate on hunting, shooting and fishing.
Yes. 1757, he begins his military career about the age of 15. That's pretty top maths there by me, I think.
Maths with Pete and Gary.
He joins the Swedish army. No, Gary, Swedish army. And he joins the Svenska Hussar Regiment as a cornet. So sort of an ice cream.
I like a cornet.
You do. I like a cornet as well.
Now, at the time, Mecklenburg was on the side of Sweden in the 7 Years' War, and hence facing up against Prussia, which was a lot of what we now call Poland.
I'll get very confused. Prussia seems to be a movable feast. Sometimes it's quite small. Sometimes it's very large.
It's all really complicated, so we'll just glide past that.
Thank you, Gary.
Now, Blücher, he took part in the Pomeranian campaign of 1760, where Prussian hussars managed to capture him in a skirmish when Blücher was cut off and his horse was wounded.
Now, he makes a big impression. This is weird for us, from a modern perspective. He makes such a big impression on the colonel of the Prussian regiment, Wilhelm Sebastian von Belling, who apparently was a distant relative. I know nothing about that. He was so impressed, he inveigled him into joining his actual regiment. Blücher, though, is honourable. Well, honourable whilst joining the enemy. I think.
Yes. I mean, he insisted in formally resigning from his old Swedish unit.
Swedish?
Swedish. It was like Swedish, but it was next door.
It's not the sort of police force.
No, and he insisted he was exchanged when a Swedish prisoner was released in his stead. And he also asked for his father's permission.
So this took a while, and he eventually joins the Death's Head Hussars. What a fine name of a regiment. Around about September 1760. What do you think turned his head most? What do you think most attracted him to this fine new regiment, Harry?
Well, you seem to think that his head was turned by the splendid uniform. What was it like, Pete?
Well, buff-coloured trousers, black overtrousers edged in green, the black dolman with cuffs of black edge green, a lot of black edge green, velvet, so yeah, black edge velvet, ooh, lovely. Loads of yellow buttons and green braids, lightly tossed over the shoulder. They have a black pelisse trimmed with more black fur, and yet more yellow buttons and green braids. Oh, it sounds gorgeous. And then they have a black Milton head. I don't know what a Milton headdress is, but it's a headdressy thing, I would imagine. And it's decorated with cords, tassels, and best of all, can you guess what else it's decorated with? Being their name is a bit of a clue. Go on, guess, Gary.
A skeleton with a scythe, complete with a motto, Vincere Aft More, or victory or death. Now, you seem to have spent rather a lot of time researching the uniform.
Yeah, it sounded really great. Also, my Facebook avatar is Mackinson, who seems to be in a similar regiment. He's got a death's head, as worn to his his daughter's 6th birthday, I believe. That's when that photograph was taken.
Now, Colonel von Belling proved a good influence on Blücher, and the old campaigner became his mentor, with his strange mixture of piety and ferocity.
What does that remind you of?
Well, that reminds me of you and me. Hi, I'm Piety.
And I'm Ferocity.
And together we're
Piety and Ferocity
Podcast.
That's a new one, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what does Belling do? Belling is a good officer. What does he prioritise? What's most important to him?
He prioritised the training and discipline of every man in his regiment, using his example and personality to curb Blücher's, how can we put this, wilder traits?
I wish I had a wilder trait.
Now, this is what Ensign Gebhard Blücher of the Death's Head Hussars said at the time. From that time on, the unforgettable Belling was a true father to me, and loved me so unconditionally that it took the real effort of youthful escapades to provoke his anger.
So he seems to have the same voice as Ron Richtofen a couple 100 years later.
I find that quite interesting, the youthful escapades to provoke his anger. I think he had a few attempts to do so.
He certainly did. What were his hobbies? Can you get? Well, actually, they were pretty well our hobbies. Well, bar one when we were young. What hobbies did he have?
Drinking, womanising,
unsuccessfully,
and duelling. I think we're probably bar 2 there, not just bar 1.
Drinking.
I don't remember duelling with anyone.
No, I don't. And I was very ineffective at womanising. So drinking.
Now that was all good fun to him.
Yeah. Now, he was a hussar officer, and he gets a lot of experience. They're like cavalry during the later battles of the 7 years. We have to glide. He's got such a career. We have to glide over bits. But he leads in the 7 Years' War. He leads parties in raids, in operations against the Austrians. Once he captures 500 prisoners. He fought in the Battle of Freiburg, 29th of October 1762, and there he was wounded for one of many wounds. What happens this time?
Well, a cannonball smashed through a building and it sent a jagged splinter through his foot.
Would that hurt, do you think?
Yes, that would hurt quite a lot. Now, shortly afterwards, the war ended in February 1763.
Now, this time, then, Blucher's regiment, the Death's Head Hussars, are billeted in Prussian Pomerania.
The war had to end in 1763, didn't it? Because of the name. It was called the 7 Years' War.
That would be when.
So it had to stop.
When did it start going?
Well, 7 years earlier.
Now, Joe, he gets steadily promoted. He's promoted to captain eventually. Do you think what do you think happens in peacetime to the good influence of Mr. Belling, as I will call him? Colonel Belling?
I think the old saying, the devil finds work for idle hands, and Blucher's hands were relatively idle.
Oh, sorry. So what does he do? Give us a quote.
Well, this is what he himself says. In my youth, I cared for nothing except having fun. Instead of studying, I gambled, drank, caroused with the ladies, hunted and pulled hilarious pranks on my friends. That is why I now know nothing. Indeed, otherwise I would be a very different chap.
Well, I think that applies. It's all starting to sound a bit like us. We quite like what we term hilarious pranks, which other people say is just stupidity.
And childish, yeah.
Childish, yeah.
What I like about that quote, he clearly knows himself. He clearly understands himself.
But can't do anything about it.
No. Now, as he suggests...
The breaking strain of a Kit Kat.
As he suggests, he was prone to excesses of all kinds, but managed to avoid much punishment as his cheery personality made him a popular officer.
Yeah, I wonder what he would have done if you'd bitten his ear.
He'd have bitten me back, I think. Now, however, his impulsive nature led him into some gross misjudgments during the Polish guerrilla-style uprisings in 1772.
Well, this is a serious business, actually, because some of his men have been murdered and their bodies mutilated. And Blücher, he doesn't seem to have any evidence, but he was convinced that the local priest was to blame. So what does he do? I mean, this is actually it's quite shocking. There's no two ways about it.
Well, he held a mock trial and he condemned the hapless priest to death. A grave was dug, the priest blindfolded, and the firing squad was assembled and fired. But their rifles had no lead bullets.
Blanks then. So, was that a bit scary?
Well, the priest collapsed in a dead faint, and that's not really surprising, is
No,
it?
It isn't. Now, what does the priest do afterwards? I've got an inkling that this is going to cause trouble.
Well, afterwards, he complained his health had been ruined, and he launched a petition for redress, supported by local Polish officials, to Frederick the Great, Frederick the Great, who was the King of Prussia.
I prefer Frederick the Great.
Now, as this incident was just one of many such incidents, with damaging accusations of extortion and general dishonesty, I put my teeth in, levelled at the regiment.
At the Death's Head Hussars, aren't
yeah.
they?
Frederick, who was never the best tempered of men, he recalled Belling and made a mental note that the regiment was not to be trusted.
Now, there's lots of fallout for this, and one of the parts is that Blücher's passed over from promotion to major. That reminds me of Gordon Corrigan, who was one of the most famous passed over majors I ever remember. Great man, a great historian. How does Blücher react to this passing over?
Well, he objects bitterly, and actually, unfortunately, he pens a rather stupid letter of resignation to Frederick, who was known to be a bad-tempered monarch. I think that's putting it mildly.
Yeah, very mildly. So what does Captain Blücher say?
Permit me, with all due submission, to apprise your majesty how insupportable it is for me to see myself superseded by an officer who has no other essential merit whatever to boast of other than being the son of the Margrave of Schwedt, Your Majesty will therefore be graciously pleased to permit me to resign sooner than expose myself to the most acute sensations during every hour of my life. What do you reckon the king does?
Well, I'll tell you what he does. Frederick the Great says this. Captain von Blücher has leave to resign and may go to the devil as soon as he pleases. Cornish
pirate, was he, Frederick the Great? Oh, dear.
I thought you'd like that flashback.
Oh, dear. Now, not just that, but Blucher ended up dishonourably discharged, aged 30, in February 1773.
That means he is a civilian, Gary, for 14 years, and he becomes a farmer. Worst of all, he's not allowed to keep his fancy uniform. Oh,
how'd he take that then?
He didn't take it well at all, and he endlessly petitions Frederick the Great, or Gate. And how do you think Frederick responds? Well, he responds exactly as you'd expect. So you're going to read one of his many, many letters.
Gebhard Blucher.
No rank?
No rank. Death's Head Hussars. Because of the bravery I displayed at every opportunity during the 7 Years' War, I enjoyed the favour of my commanders, the confidence of the staff officers, and the affection of my comrades and subordinates. On every occasion, I showed my zeal for the service. I looked for opportunities and acted ambitiously. My regiment can testify to this. I served out of ambition and loyalty. None will surpass me in eagerness and bravery. In the company of two of my brothers, I, as a foreigner, devoted myself to your Royal Highness's service. Those two companions lost their lives on the battlefield as able officers. I am the unfortunate survivor of this little group. My fate has made me jealous of my brothers. Allow me, your Royal Majesty, to end my days the same way my brothers did, in your service. If it pleases your Royal Majesty to have me serve only during a time of war, please bestow on me the rank of Major and allow me to wear the uniform of the cavalry.
The cavalry, that uniform.
And also promote me.
Oh, yeah. Now, Frederick replies, and I love that. That is nothing.
Weight loss. It needs to be fast and sustainable. Noom GLP-1 starts at just $149 and ships to your door in 7 days. Take it from Lauren, who lost 22 pounds on Noom.
If I come off of the GLP-1, it's not going to automatically make my weight yo-yo back.
$149 GLP-1s? Now that's Noom smart. Get started at Noom.com. Real Noom user compensated to provide their story. Individual results may vary. Not all customers will medically qualify for prescription medications. Compounded medications are not reviewed by the FDA for safety, efficacy, or quality.
Under Biden, Americans' cost of living skyrocketed. Food, housing, auto insurance. Lawsuit abuse is a big reason everything's more expensive today. Frivolous lawsuits cost working Americans over $4,000 a year in hidden taxes. President Trump understands the problem. That's why he supports loser pays legislation to stop lawsuit abuse and put thousands back in the pockets of hardworking Americans. It's time to make America affordable again. It's time to support the president's plan.
Ahoy there!
My chute! It won't open!
Don't worry, I'm here to save you.
Thank you!
Up to 89% on the cost of your shipping with pirateship.com.
What?
Shall I take that packet?
Wait, where are you going?
To save you up to 89%. Pirateship.com will save you money on shipping. Savings vary depending on weight, dimension, season, and destination of the package.
The world is facing urgent, monumental issues, and you may be considering a career where you can take your service to the next level and make a global impact. In the heart of Washington, D.C., gain world-renowned expert knowledge and a global network as you pursue a master's degree and turn your passion into practice. Thousands of the world's leaders got their start at the George Washington University's Elliott School of International Affairs. Are you next? GW is a proud Yellow Ribbon Program participant.
I mean, I just look, Frederick the Great coming. We might do a podcast of Frederick the Great one day.
No, he replies in similar vein to all of Blucher's desperate and indeed pathetic
entreaties. That letter comes across as a little bit pathetic and whiny, but he's on his knees, isn't he?
He is. Now, it's only on Frederick's death and replacement by King Frederick William II in 1786 that Blücher could return to the army.
So what does he come back as?
Well, he's reinstated as a major and squadron commander in his old regiment, which is now called the Red Hussars, in March 1887.
Now, I'm just working this out, and I'm not sure I've worked it out.
I don't think that's the right date, 1887. I think that's 1787.
Yeah. I was going to say, sorry about that. I may have led you into something, but he was not 144 years old.
No, he was 44 years old, the age that most soldiers consider retirement.
What year how old were you when you retired from the army?
21, 22, 23, 24, 25 and 26. Depends on what you call retirement.
Blucher's only just started, hasn't he? Fabulous. Now, we're going to have to glide over the next bit. So what happens? Give me a review of the next bit and how his career is progressing before we stop for a bit.
Well, he took part in the expedition to the Netherlands in 1787.
What do you know about that?
That it was in the Netherlands and it was in 1787. And the next year, he's promoted to Lieutenant Colonel.
So doing well.
Yes. In 1789, he received Prussia's highest military order, the Pour le Mérite.
Doing better. And his... that's what Richthofen got as well. So that I see.
Well, he wouldn't have got that for nothing, would he? Let's face it.
1790, promoted to full colonel, doing well. Now, what happens then? Then the big match starts. What happens?
In 1792, Prussia and Austria declared their support for King Louis XVII of France, isolated and doomed in revolutionary France.
Now, the Revolutionary Wars, as such, begin when France declares war on Austria in April 1792, and Frederick William II backs Austria. Europe, so is at war. It's at war with the War of the First Coalition, so called. We're not pretending to be experts on any of this, are we? But it's basically Great Britain, You're pretending to be an expert, right? Who is it then?
Well, it's Great Britain, the Netherlands, Spain, Naples, and Portugal, all joining the Allies.
Oh, fighting France.
Well, everybody fights France eventually.
Yeah. So so at first. He wants more desperate entreaties. Oh, help, let me do. But Blücher's not involved until his first real command. This is the 2nd Battalion of the Red Hussars. They're cavalry, remember, but that's their terminology. They're deployed to the Netherlands in February 1793. Now, during the early phase of the things, the Allies are doing well until 1794. We'll come to that. But the French... what have the French done that means they're a dangerous opponent against such a mass of allies? What do they do? It's quite new, really, isn't it?
The French, they'd launched a levée en masse.
So what's that?
Well, they fight with a single purpose. The Allies had national self-interest at the heart of everything they did. And in the absence of that, the commanders were torn apart by personal ambition and jealousy. So
the French have launched basically conscription. Everybody's called up that can walk, basically. Well, that's an exaggeration, but they're mass conscription, and then they're led with a single purpose. But the Allies are fractured. That's just what you've said, actually. I don't know
because they're allies.
Yeah.
You know, they have different objectives, different motivations.
That's right.
Now, however, in 1793 and 1794, Blücher distinguished himself in cavalry actions against the French in the Netherlands. He was involved in numerous skirmishes and raids, and we're going to just describe a couple of incidents that give the flavour of the man.
The growing soldier, so to speak. Well, firstly, there's an occasion when the Prussian camp's being harassed before dawn by French voltigeurs. That's their light infantry. They're firing from concealment, hedges, bushes, trees, and they're causing severe casualties. No, I doubt if they were severe, actually. It's about several casualties. Now, Blücher is ordered to organise an ambush. So what does he do? And we've got a date for this, haven't we?
Yeah, on the 25th of July, 1793, having been informed that the French planned to ambush one of the Prussian patrols around the camp, he resolved to strike first.
So what's he do?
Well, around about 0300, 3 o'clock in the morning, as the French began to move, a few Prussian hussars pushed into the high road and galloped away as if retreating. Another party, which seemed to be on patrol, also seemed to withdraw as if afraid of superior numbers.
Now, what's he trying to do? He's trying to bluff. He's trying to draw them in, is he?
He is, and the French are completely deceived by this ploy, and, throwing caution to the winds, they pursue.
Now, they run straight into a preset Prussian ambush, and it absolutely cuts them down. They suffer bad casualties, and Blücher takes over 100 prisoners. It's very, very good. It's a good performance. It's the sort of incident that marks you out as a coming man, so to speak. Now, in March 1794, his achievements are recognised, and he's made commander of the whole of the Red Hussar Regiment after his predecessor retired. Obviously, so to speak. Now, there's another great example of his abilities that occurs on 28th of May 1794 near Kerweiler in the Pfalz. Tell me about that.
Where was it?
Pfalz.
Where was it?
Pfalz.
Oh, right.
Well, how would you say that?
Kerweiler.
Oh, I thought you were arguing about Pfalz. That was the one I was confident because it's a Pfalz aircraft.
Now, the French had advanced with 2 large bodies of cavalry supported by infantry and artillery towards Kerweiler. After reconnoitring the situation...
That'll teach you!
Blücher realised he was outnumbered and outgunned, so he resolved to try another tactic. Taking advantage of what he recognised was the slightly exposed position of the French right column. So he'd still attack.
Well, he uses similar tactics in one sense. He pretends his hussars are retreating, when really he's amassed no less than 4 squadron of hussars behind a hill, which it conceals their presence, and he entices the French forward. What does he do then?
Well, he then charges out to hit the flank of the first French columns approaching Kerweiler. The column breaks, leaving valuable guns to be captured, and Blücher led a vigorous pursuit.
Charge! What happens then?
Well, he then manoeuvres to attack the right flank of the second French column.
Now, this time, he's countered by a strong force of French dragoons, which seem to outnumber him. But he again he's not to be thwarted. He comes up with another cunning plan. And I want people to notice they are cunning plans, aren't they? This is not a stupid officer. What does he do this time?
Well, he ordered detached parties to gallop down the enemy's line to skirmish, continually firing their pistols at the French cavalry. Now, that was to cause confusion and disorder.
So what happens? What happens?
Well, the French dragoon officer thought his position was too exposed to these teasing attacks and ordered his soldiers to retire.
Now, that's Blücher's moment, isn't he? He charges forward. He'd got a strong body of cavalry he'd kept in reserve. They charge forward. Charge! And they catch the French dragoons just as they're wheeling round. And he breaks them to pieces. More than 200 are killed and 100 taken prisoner. And what does Colonel Gebhard Blücher say of the Red Hussars, say of this, triumph?
The large number of those fleeing were stuffed in the narrow lanes of the village, where occurred a bloody massacre, and therefore the enemy's losses were very great before he could reach the exit of the village and escape under protection of his artillery. With mere cavalry, we won a decisive battle over an entire enemy corps. The battlefield was covered with dead Frenchmen, while the loss on our side was slight.
Now, he's rewarded again. That's another great achievement. He's promoted to Major General, although he stays in the same cavalry role. Now, this is against the backdrop. What did we say? In 1794, actually, you can have the odd success, but nevertheless, the French are winning. And the Allies are driven out of the Low Countries, Belgium, the Netherlands, and they drive them back right across the Rhine, the Prussians, the Allies. So what's happening? There's battle after battle, and we're going to have another quote. This is Blücher's account of the third battle of Kaiserslautern, where again he shows fantastic initiative. I think. What's he done? He'd set his cavalry searching through the forest, and he's seeking out the French, who at this point, locally, there's things going backwards and forwards all over the place. But this time, the French are retreating, and he's using bugle calls to coordinate his cavalry movements as they pass through the forest. And what does Major General Gebhard Blücher say, Gary?
A real battle took place. It was not long before we heard a great cry to our right. Everything rushed there, and in a moment 300 infantry discovered they were cut down or taken captive. Now everything unfolded in quick succession. Here and there dense clusters of enemy infantry were attacked to the middle of the forest and overwhelmed. Many a combat was fought, when I again heard an unusually loud noise. Soon after, I received the message that they discovered a few ordered battalions slowly withdrawing through the woods, and they would probably offer vigorous resistance. We rushed to the area, and I soon heard the voice of my brave Captain Sidov, who called our people together and encouraged them. I galloped to him and saw the infantry, which consisted of at least 600 men, that had moved behind a strong abattis. Noticing us, they started briskly firing at us. Captain Sidov was shot through the arm. Anticipating losing a lot of men unless we maneuvered the infantry out of the abattis, I moved to my left. This had the desired effect. The enemy resumed his march and wanted to continue his retreat, but near Hohennechen had to pass through a small meadow, some 500 paces long, before he could return to the undergrowth. To me, this appeared to be the place where we could punish him. However, we were very weak because many of our men remained dispersed in the woods. I had the rally blown frequently, and soon several hussars and dragoons came galloping to us. After I assembled 80 men, I ordered the advance at the very moment the enemy infantry started crossing the meadow. I called to our people to attack with good spirits, because the French muskets had gotten wet and would not do much to us.
Now, this is, the French are absolutely slaughtered. This is a momentary setback to them. Of the 7,000 Bluchers facing, some 3,000 were killed or wounded and 4,000 became prisoners. That's a destruction of that group. However, this is just one victory. What does it change? What does it change, Gary?
Nothing, and soon they're on the retreat again.
Yeah, the Prussians, the Allies are falling back. The war isn't going well, and in 1795 they're ready for peace, and that's secured by the Treaty of Basel, as in faulty.
Now at this point, we'll take a short break where we may or may not hear from our sponsors.
Weight loss. It needs to be fast and sustainable. Noom GLP-1 starts at just $149 and ships to your door in 7 days. Take it from Lauren, who lost 22 pounds on Noom.
If I come off of the GLP-1, it's not going to automatically make my weight yo-yo back.
$149 GLP-1s? Now that's Noom smart. Get started at Noom.com. Real Noom user compensated to provide their story. Individual results may vary. Not all customers will medically qualify for prescription medications. Compounded medications are not reviewed by the FDA for safety, efficacy, or quality.
Introducing Instagram teen accounts, a new way to keep your teens safer as they grow, like making sure they've got the right gear for riding.
Knee pads.
Check.
And helmet.
Done. See you, Dad.
New Instagram teen accounts, automatic protections for who can contact your teen and the content they can see.
Now, Blücher, he's identified disunity amongst the Allies as the cause of their defeat and was particularly scathing of the mistakes made by the British and the Austrians.
Is he just blaming his allies there? Because, British are always easy to blame because we're treacherous, but what about...
Well, he's probably, there's probably a bit of that. I mean, he did believe that the peace wouldn't endure.
But he's wrong, isn't he?
Yeah, but Prussian neutrality, that'd last some 10 years.
Now, where are we in Blücher's, where his military career, where is he? I mean, I see he's a cavalry leader at this time. What's he got?
Well, he'd gained much valuable experience as an aggressive, brave and determined cavalry commander, and occasionally deploying an additional couple of battalions and batteries, but he'd not yet held a major command. I
would say, and I'm not an expert, but from reading, I read a couple of the biographies, and we'll talk about that at the end of the second podcast about Blücher. He's gained experience, but I wouldn't say he's matured yet, and... What do you think he is at heart? He's not a general, really, is he? What is he at heart?
Well, he's still a young hussar leading a self-destructive lifestyle laced with heavy drinking and gambling. But by this time, he's in his 50s, and it was occasionally beginning to catch up with him.
So how does that show itself?
Well, he had bouts of serious illness, and he also had black dogs.
Ooh, like Churchill.
Quite serious depression.
Yeah. Now, He's got a variety of military duties during this truce, but he's also got responsibilities as a landowner. You know, so he's kept busy enough, I suppose. What do you think he wants? What's he looking for?
Well, he still craved promotion and recognition of his services. But the next big step to his future wouldn't come in until 1801, when he was made a lieutenant general. So quite old, really. What's happening now? Prussia, they've gained some lands because Napoleon manoeuvres between the Allies, doesn't he? So he tries to put them against each other by giving bits of land to various things. But Blücher still craves revenge, and whenever there was diplomatic difficulties with the French or with other people, or whenever Napoleon oversteps his mark, Blücher champs at the bit. What does Blücher say? Major General Gebhard
Lieutenant
Blücher.
General. I was trying to lead you into that.
Lieutenant General. He's been promoted.
Yeah, but he might. I don't know when he said this. That's why I was a bit hesitant about this. I'm not quite sure when
It's definitely Gebhard Blücher.
Let's settle on that.
For 4 weeks, I have stood with my foot in the saddle, but cannot mount. We must be determined to give a pounding. The French must learn that in the north there are still Germans who will punish them. And
now he's also thinking about what the Prussian army is and what it should be, isn't he? And how does he encapsulate his thoughts, or his early thoughts anyway?
Well, he in 1805 he has a treatise which was called The Thoughts Over the Formation of a Prussian National Army, and he called for compulsory military service.
Is that based on the French, I presume?
Yeah, a shorter length of service and improved pay and conditions for the soldiers. Now, some reforms were introduced, but little progress was achieved.
So there's just some ideas, but they're not really being carried out. What do you think his overall position is as to regards the French during this truce?
Well, it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody that he was one of the leaders of the war party bombarding King Frederick William III and his officials.
They've changed again.
With letters demanding action against the French.
Oh, these kings come and go, don't they?
They do. And this is one of the letters by Lieutenant General Gebhard Blücher. I believe the French have dishonest intentions against us. The king is the only righteous power who can swim against the currents. Through friendship wrapped in deceit or force, whatever the circumstances offer, this dike will rupture. We are still full of strength, and it would be faint-heartedness if we believed that we could not stand up to these windbags. Our army is good, and there is a good mood among it. And even if we have a few who are pig-headed, the same had happened under Frederick II. This, however, should not stop us from looking the enemy in his face and beating him. The latter will happen as sure as I am alive, but it is now urgent that we make up our mind for this vendetta. United with Saxony and Hesse, the French cannot conquer us. If we need money, England will give it to us. If the war does not occur, then in a few years it would be very hard for us to face this colossus. I would be very happy to start the dance.
The dance of death, Gary.
Now, interestingly, that was a similar view, wasn't it, in the German leadership prior to the Great War, that if it didn't happen then, they wouldn't be in a position to win a few years later. That's very interesting.
Russia was strengthening herself, and the French as well. Yeah, that's an interesting point. Now, so what
You're not
happens?
interested at all, are you, really?
I am interested, Gary. I'm always interested in your insights.
Yes. Now, on the 8th of August 1806, after a series of disputes, war with France broke out again. I can imagine how happy Blücher was.
Yeah. What appointments he given?
Well, he served as General of the Cavalry Advance Guard in the disastrous campaign that ensued.
You say disastrous, so what's disastrous about it?
Well, a shambolic mobilisation failed to concentrate the Prussian forces, and to make matters worse, they advanced into central Germany to confront the French, but with their 10 divisions spread out in 3 separate armies.
I would say that's a recipe for defeat in detail. They can pick on one and then destroy that, and then concentrate on the second. Who are they facing? Anybody good?
No, just Napoleon.
Oh.
He fought a brilliant campaign seeking to outflank the exposed Prussian left flank.
Now, Blücher is in charge of the advance guard under the main army, and there's a double battle of Jena. Is it Jena?
Yeah, I'd say Jena.
And Auerstedt, which occurs on the 14th of October 1806, and Blücher is in the Auerstedt part of it. How does he perform here? It's not his best day, is it?
No, he led 3 failed charges of the Prussian cavalry against the French squares, and undaunted, he tries once more. And this is what Lieutenant General Gebhard Blücher says. When I tried again to get the cavalry forward, my horse was shot. As I fell, everything was turned upside down.
I do like that quote. Now, he grabs a bugler's horse. I wonder if the bugler was on it. Off! But he manages to escape without being captured or killed. Well, obviously he escaped. Now, what does he say then?
I hurried to the village behind me. To halt the fleeing cavalry, I grabbed a standard and placed myself on the dike in the village, facing the fugitives, but all in vain. To the left and right they flew by me. Everyone shouted, "Stop!" But no one listened. I called to the officers to look around. There was nothing of the enemy behind them, but the tide carried everything, and the cavalry fled to the woods.
Now, why am I critical? Why, not I, because it doesn't matter what I think about this, really, but why are people critical of Blücher's performance in this battle?
Well, he wasted the cavalry by attacking too soon and in isolation against indomitable and impervious French squares.
Any flank to uncover?
No. Who else do we know finished up doing the same? Marshal Ney.
Yeah. Waterloo. Another insight, Gary.
Now, during the retreat of the broken Prussian armies, Blücher was given command of the rearguard corps.
That's a thankless task, I'd have thought.
I would have thought so. On the retreat via the lower Elbe to Lübeck, he was attacked from all sides by the French.
16th of October, he encounters French troops under General Klein near Gruson. Now, I particularly like this, and this is where I think he reminds me a bit of you, the ultimate negotiator and contract manager, because he forms a contract with the French. How does he avoid battle?
Well, he knew that he couldn't win, so he rides out towards them, accompanied by a few of his staff officers, and asks to be conducted to the French general under a flag of truce. Truce?
What's his plan?
Well, he tells Klein that he already received news from the King of Prussia that peace had actually already been concluded. Now, the gullible General Klein...
Was he lying?
Yes. The gullible General Klein, he swallows the bait, and Blücher's corps was permitted to pass unmolested. A false march then took him out of danger for the time being.
I think that's just wonderful. I mean, it's relying on, of course, communications. I mean, that's the point, isn't it? That the communications were slow.
Yeah, it's all over. No, I've been told it's finished. Honestly, Gov, it's all finished. Oh, all right, then you can pass right through. Thank you very much.
That's brilliant. But they're still retreating. I mean, it hasn't changed the battle. Napoleon enters Berlin on the 27th of October. It's been a 2-week campaign. What cost to the Prussians, would you say?
Some 40,000 dead and wounded, 165,000 prisoners, and 4,000 cannons.
Can they afford that?
No, it's a disaster.
Now, Blücher had wanted war. He got what he wanted. Had it gone as he wanted, would you say?
No, couldn't have been more wrong. It had all been a shambles of poor organisation and overall leadership.
Now, the main body of the retreating Prussian armies is defeated and capitulates at the Battle of Prenzlau. That's the 28th of October, 1806. At this point, Blücher's on his own, almost. What's he doing?
Well, he's marching to the north and he finds his march towards the northeast blocked. He's being assailed from all sides and his men are worn out.
Would that a technical term be buggered?
Yes, that would be a very appropriate technical term. Now, Blücher, his aim is to avoid a battle. He wants to keep an army in being to restrict Napoleon's freedom of manoeuvre.
So that Napoleon has to stay honest, if you like. He can't take risks because there'll be a formed body that could strike his flanks.
Yeah, he also wants to allow the Prussian and the Russian forces to sort themselves out.
What problems is he facing now? What problems?
Well, it's the obvious ones. Lack of food, lack of supplies, lack of ammunition.
So he leads the remnant of his force. He can't go northeast, so he goes northwest. And he is reinforced by a division previously commanded by a Grand Duke of Saxe-Weimar. I don't know why I put that. Now, Blücher, at this point, we have somebody important joins him. He has a new chief of staff. Who is this masked man?
Well, it's Gebhard von Scharnhorst.
We've heard of the Scharnhorst before, haven't we?
We have. Now, he reorganised his forces into 2 small corps, totalling 21,000 men and 44 guns. Doesn't sound like a lot of guns, that.
No. Well, they'd lost most of them. And so Scharnhorst, he's not just a ship in the First World War. This is the original.
Was he a ship?
No. Although a lot of men sailed under him. Now, what happens next?
Well, he forces the good citizens of Lübeck to allow him into the city.
Yeah, that's pretty violent. Well, you've got a theme that you sometimes develop about place names, about they seem to fight over the same places again and again. Lübeck is where the second 554 files finish their story. That's where they are, their final action in the Second World War. All the same places, and it's quite amazing. So what happens? They force their ways into the city. Well, why don't the civilians want them in there? I think it's fairly evident from what happens next.
Yeah, well, very soon afterwards, they're assaulted by 3 French corps under the command, respectively, of Generals Bernadotte, Murat, and Soult.
Good generals. And what's this battle called?
Well, imaginatively, it's called the Battle of Lübeck, and it occurs on the 6th of November.
Now, Blücher's forces are running out of ammunition. That doesn't help. The French storm the city. And then what happens to those civilians who hadn't wanted the Blücher's men in the first place?
Well, the French indulge in terrible atrocities against the civilians. Now, Blücher himself, he only just managed to escape, while Scharnhorst is taken prisoner.
And actually, Blücher leads a failed cavalry charge that he's trying to rescue his chief of staff. Now, this is a terrible defeat. Although, what impact does this terrible defeat have?
Well, his brave defence against overwhelming odds made Blücher a national hero in the grim years that follow.
Yeah, but there's no real escape, is there? So what happens next day?
Well, next day, with less than 10,000 soldiers left, Blücher's trapped against the Danish frontier by 40,000 French troops at Ratikow, and he's forced to surrender.
Now, he insists that a postscript be added to the surrender document. And you're going to read this postcard.
Postcard?
Yeah, he wrote it on a postcard, Gary. There's no need to be critical of me.
He says, "I capitulate since I have neither bread nor ammunition."
Well, indeed, yeah, that was, he had to, that's not the only reason he had to surrender, but that's how he sees it. And the French object, and what does he say then?
"By God, I'll capitulate on no other conditions whatever. Let what will come of it."
Ooh, feisty.
So he's allowed to keep his sabre.
Oh, not allowed to keep his sabre.
No, he's allowed to keep his sabre, and he can move about freely, bound only by his word of honour.
So parole, but essentially, and he's actually rapidly exchanged. Who's he exchanged for? I've never heard of him, but apparently it's well known.
He's a future Marshal of France, I think. Claude Victor Perrin, Duc de Boulogne.
Never heard of him.
He was the Duke, or he was either the Duc de Boulogne or the Duc de Boulogne.
I'm going for Duck.
Now, the war dragged on until the treaties of Tilsit were signed by Napoleon I of France in July 1807, after his victory over the Russians at the Battle of Friedland.
Now, these treaties, who do you think suffers worst?
Well, largely the Prussian king, who'd already agreed to a truce on the 25th of June after the Grand Army had captured Berlin and pursued him to the eastern frontier of Prussia.
So what does she lose, Prussia?
Well, half of its pre-war territories are split up, amongst others, between the new Kingdom of Westphalia, the Duchy of Warsaw, and to Russia.
And this is what you see again. Prussia's defeated, but he's using that defeat. Napoleon's manoeuvring, so it gives them a bit of pressure to keep them quiet, creates client states. Is the Kingdom of Westphalia and Duchy of Warsaw, they're going to be indebted to Napoleon, aren't they? So
yeah, and this in effect cemented Napoleon's control of Central Europe, but it also forced Russia and Prussia to ally with him against Britain and Sweden, which triggers the Anglo-Russian and Finnish wars.
So it's cunning devil, that Napoleon. Wouldn't like to face him, would you? So what happens to Blücher?
After the peace is signed, Blücher's appointed to the military government of Pomerania.
Now, he's regarded as a natural leader of the Patriot Party, and during this period of almost total Napoleonic domination, he's continually looking for a chance for revenge. I will have revenge. What does he want? How does he see a way to getting revenge on the Napoleonic Empire?
Well, he high hopes of an alliance with Austria during the War of 1809, but once more he's thwarted.
What's happened to the Prussia's restricted in. Lost half a territory. What else has been affected by events?
Well, the army's restricted to just 42,000 men, 24,000 infantry, 6,000 cavalry, 6,000 artillerymen, and 6,000 guards.
That does make 42,000. You're right.
Maths with Pete and Gary.
The Germans have a history of being restricted. After the First World War, they're restricted, and there's ways around things. So what do? They're really good at evading treaty restrictions. What are they trying to do?
Well, they're trying to ensure they've got the ability to raise an army of around about 250,000 men at time of war. So
Blucher's got some ideas.
He's got some ideas, and in August 1807, he writes to his former staff officer, Colonel August von Gneisenau.
He goes well with Gneisenau and Scharnhorst. They go together well, those two, don't they?
They do. And this is what Lieutenant General Gebhard Blücher writes. Say hello to my friend Scharnhorst and tell him that I urge him to form a national army. This is not as difficult as one thinks. No one must be excused from the service. No one must be exempt, and it should be a disgrace for those who do not serve for reasons other than physical affliction. After the soldiers had been well trained, they would go home for 2 years and only return to service in the 3rd year. Thus, the burden on the state will be eased, and there will not be a shortage of people. It is also a mistake to believe that a trained soldier will forget in 2 years all that he has learned, and that in 8 days he cannot again be combat ready. The French proved this and many other things to us.
And he's right. You see, the armies are modernising. The European armies are moving to conscription, to reserve systems, all the modern things from the First World War that we do know about. What does Blücher's own life story sort of demonstrate?
Well, that men could resume military service after a long layoff.
Yeah, his was 15 years, not a couple of years.
14 years.
All right, 14 years. Damn,
Maths with Pete and Gary.
Wrong again. Now, the Scharnhorst and Gneisenau, what they're really famous for amongst is that they introduce, as staff officers, they introduce a series of reforms within the Prussian army. Now, let's just go through what these were. So firstly is the one that springs from that. So what's that?
Recruitment, training and exercising of conscript recruits to allow rapid reinforcement in times of war.
So that's what Blücher wanted. What else?
Rebuilding the artillery force. All of it had been lost in the war. Now that's an enormous undertaking.
It is. What else things that are often forgotten. What else do you have to do? It's all very well having troops and guns. What else do you need?
Well, you've got to establish munitions manufacturing base and have dispersed factories.
Why dispersed factories, Gary?
Well, you don't want them all in the same place for obvious reasons.
What is that obvious reason?
They could be destroyed
or taken over. Yeah, if you lose that area of territory. What else? What else are they planning?
Well, to prepare the great Prussian fortresses and entrenched camps with extended defence lines.
So in peace, you prepare for war.
Yes.
What else? This is nasty. Not nasty.
It's understandable.
What else?
Removal of senior officers are judged to have failed in the 1806 campaign.
Blücher must have been sweating on that.
Well, he must have been borderline, mustn't he?
Well, because he'd done so badly with the cavalry. He'd done well in the retreat, though, so I think that's what saved him. What else?
Promotion, which was up to that point often by strict seniority, was expanded to encourage the advancement of men who'd proved themselves.
And in the end, that's men like Blücher, because in the end, during that retreat, although he'd done badly with the cavalry, he'd done well with his corps as a rearguard, hadn't he?
Now, by 1812, as a result of these initiatives, instead of the permitted 42,000 men, in just a few months after mobilisation, Prussia could put into the field a trained army of about 150,000 men.
Wow, is everything going well then? No, because the French are evil geniuses, or certainly Napoleon is, because what happens then?
Well, for Blücher, there's an utter disaster. Prussia was left with little choice but to ally with France in 1812.
Is that against the Russians, I presume, in the 1812 campaign? Well, what can go wrong for Napoleon as he invades Russia? I have no idea. So what happens to Russia's army?
Well, Prussia's army, yeah. I mean, once again, the army was to be hobbled, and all progress in building up Prussia's military strength was reduced to a standstill.
Well, how did Blücher react to that?
Well, he expressed himself so vigorously on the subject of the alliance with France.
He did speak his mind, didn't he?
Yeah, that he's recalled from his governorship of Pomerania, and he's virtually banished from the court.
Well, I reckon that's him finished. I don't reckon we'll ever hear his name again in the annals of history.
Well, we'll find out, Pete, in a couple of weeks.
Or months, depending on when we get round to it. Cheers, Gary.
Cheers, Pete.
Under Biden, Americans' cost of living skyrocketed. Food, housing, auto insurance. Lawsuit abuse is a big reason everything's more expensive today. Frivolous lawsuits cost working Americans over $4,000 a year in hidden taxes. President Trump understands the problem. That's why he supports loser pays legislation to stop lawsuit abuse and put thousands back in the pockets of hardworking Americans. It's time to make America affordable again. It's time to support the president's plan.
Ahoy there!
My chute! It won't open!
Don't worry, I'm here to save you.
Thank you!
Up to 89% on the cost of your shipping with pirateship.com.
What?
Shall I take that packet?
Wait, where are you going?
To save you up to 89%. Pirateship.com will save you money on shipping. Savings vary depending on weight, dimension, season, and destination of the package.
The world is facing urgent, monumental issues, and you may be considering a career where you can take your service to the next level and make a global impact. In the heart of Washington, D.C., gain world-renowned expert knowledge and a global network as you pursue a master's degree and turn your passion into practice. Thousands of the world's leaders got their start at the George Washington University's Elliott School of International Affairs. Are you next? GW is a proud Yellow Ribbon Program participant.
If you're planning a trip to Europe in 2025, you can walk in the footsteps of the Anzacs. Our Western Front Explorer Tour spends 4 days exploring all the Australian battlefields from the First World War in the Somme, the Ypres Salient and Flanders. This is the only Australian tour that begins and ends in Paris, so it's a really great way to see those famous battlefields. Now, the Western Front Explorer Tour departs weekly between April and November, and it includes accommodation in the heart of the battlefields, deluxe transportation, and a range of extras that you only get on a McLachlan tour. And like all our tours, you'll be escorted by one of our expert historians who will bring the story of the Anzacs to life. This itinerary has been personally designed by me, and all the historians are my friends and colleagues, and I've hand-picked them to lead these tours. This really is a brilliant way to see the battlefields. It's the 4-day Explorer Tour, departing weekly from Paris, and for more information you can visit battlefields.com.au.